Hello. This video will explore a well-rounded Molten Burst build for a Chieftain. NGAMAHU'S Flame Axe has a unique built-in skill that has a 20% chance to trigger on melee hit. It's Molten Burst, a fiery projectile attack very similar to Molten Strike. This is an excellent opportunity to create trigger build with some other high attack speed skill. The best skill to trigger Molten Burst with is Cyclone due to its high attack rate and ability to move while attacking. By hitting a single enemy around 20 times a second, which is expected, it becomes a reliable source of damage. These are both attacks, so even Cyclone will deal some DPS. To further increase damage, you can anoint your amulet with Vengeant Cascade to make your projectiles bounce as they try to return to you. Don't forget about point-blank support for up to 30% more damage. It's a conversion build, so you may benefit from increases to both physical and fire damage. Chieftain is one of the viable ascendancies. NGAMAHU Keystone, as the name suggests, pairs extremely well with this weapon. It fully converts your Molten Burst damage to fire and periodically improves your DPS. Pick Ramako, Valiko, and Arohangi as your other keystones. Molten Burst can be supported by 6 support gems, and the axe doesn't even need to have its sockets linked, so the build is also easy to assemble. The axe itself is very cheap, making this build a great starter. The Cyclone alone is not a primary source of damage. For survivability, the build relies mostly on maximum life, evasion, and armor. It additionally mitigates a lot of physical damage via endurance charges and has decent life regeneration. An often overlooked trait of this build is that you can move and dodge while stealing damage. Clear speed is excellent if properly geared, but it's still cursed with its short weapon range. Single target damage is not as good, as you're only hitting one enemy, triggering Molten Bursts with lower frequency. It's one of the cheapest builds as its weapon is inexpensive. Other items vary in price, but it can be assembled on a shoestring budget. It's an attack build with a very cheap unique weapon, which is great, as more than often it is the most expensive part of such builds. Here it is the only required unique. Due to it being a build that benefits immensely from Herald of Ash, we recommend using Circle of Anguish Ring. Look for rage-related unique items too. Rage is extremely good here. Due to the huge bonus to movement and attack speed, Devoto's Devotion is one of the best helmets. It grants no life, which may be problematic. NGAMAHU'S Flame is the weapon this build is based around. Try to get one with high rolls, corrupted implicits, or a good crucible tree as it's extremely cheap. The Brass Dome adds a lot of armor and maximum elemental resistances to mitigate most of the damage present in the game. As you're benefiting only from one ancestral totem, Dawnstrider boots are quite a good option. Use them for increased attack speed. Kayam Spirit Gloves will generate a lot of rage with the Valiko Keystone. You can still leech life and gain it on hit with Cyclone, so it's not too debilitating. Bear's Girdle increases your maximum rage by 20, that's a significant amount. It adds life, physical damage, and damage per rage. Definitely consider it if you already have all the necessary resistances. Circle of Anguish adds fire damage and fire resistance. Look for modifiers like increased buff effect or increased fire damage. Large Ring Thread of Hope near Vigor and Savagery allows you to allocate great notables like Art of the Gladiator, Rampart, Hatchet Master, or Panopticon. As a Marauder, you have access to very good keystones. Rite of Ruin, Crave the Slaughter, Aspect of Carnage, Undeniable, Without Resolute Technique, Unstoppable, and Indomitable Resolve are the best ones. Anger is your only aura, but it has 2 desirable modifiers it is associated with. Fire damage penetration and physical damage as extra fire damage. On your gear pieces, look for attack speed, and added physical, or fire damage. Keep in mind you're dealing most of the damage via projectiles, not the melee attacks. For defenses, get the simple resistances, maximum life, spell suppression, armor, and evasion. You won't need accuracy or critical strike stats with Resolute Technique, but you may lack some of the attributes other than strength. Helmet. Here you can get maximum life, suppression, armor, evasion, and resistances. Warlord's Helmet can get you a superb modifier or two. On a body armor, get as much maximum life, elemental resistances, and spell suppression chance as you can afford. The basic armor and evasion stats may be great too. A pair of boots with maximum life, 35% increased movement speed, resistances, and spell suppression would be fine. Extra action speed can be crafted as an Eldritch Implicit. Maximum life, resistances, and attack speed should be present on your gloves. Remember to craft the Eldritch Implicit that grants rage on hit. The belt should provide you with maximum life, resistances, and increased elemental damage with attack skills. Stygian Vice is the best option. Added physical or fire damage with attributes are common and useful modifiers to seek on an amulet, right after maximum life and resistances. You can implement Shaper's Prefix for movement speed, or Elder's Suffix for attack speed. Flammability Curse on hit would be great to have on a ring. Attack speed or added damage are offensive mods. Get maximum life and various resistances for survivability. We recommend a jewel with maximum life, elemental resistances, attack speed, and mana reservation efficiency. Large cluster jewels are great for attack builds. Get a fire damage or physical damage base with some of the listed notables on them. Magic flasks are best suited for this build. We've strived for a somewhat equal amount of armor and evasion. Use Granite Flask with increased armor and Jade Flask with increased evasion. Silver Flask with increased attack speed, Quicksilver Flask with increased movement speed, and a Life Flask with bleed removal are other excellent additions. Molten Burst has a 20% chance to release 3 projectiles each time you hit an enemy with any other skill. These will deal converted fire damage. Link it with elemental damage with attacks, fire penetration, concentrated effect, combustion, vicious projectiles, and greater multiple projectiles. Socketed these support gems in your NGAMAHU'S flame axe. Remember to use awakened fire penetration to apply exposure effortlessly. In your body armor, you can accommodate another 6 link setup. Use Cyclone to rapidly attack all the enemies around your character. Link it with faster attacks, fortify, infused channeling, life gain on hit, and blind support gems. You can tinker with it a bit and swap some of the gems you deem less important. Immortal Call reduces physical and elemental damage taken for a short duration. Link it with cast when damage taken to cast it automatically. You will need your movement key for Cyclone or Warcry. Increased duration or life tap support can be added here too. Defiance Banner increases armor and evasion, and reduces crit chance for all nearby enemies. Herald of Ash grants more fire damage and fire damage gained from physical damage. It enhances your clear speed as well. Use the anomalous version of Blood and Sand. It grants more area of effect at the cost of area damage, or vice versa. Anger adds extra fire damage to attacks and spells. All these mana reserving skills should reserve 95% of your mana pool. Blood Rage grants more attack speed, life leech, and frenzy charges on kill, but drains your life. If you've accumulated rage, which comes naturally for builds using axes, you can spend it on Berserk for more movement, attack speed, damage, and less damage taken. Infernal Cry covers enemies in ash, making them take increased fire damage. These enemies explode on death. Dash is a low cooldown mobility skill to move faster and dodge hits. Alternatively, you can use Frostblink if you have enough intelligence, as it won't interrupt your Cyclone. Flammability is the best curse that lowers fire resistance. You can link it with Hextouch and some skill, or as an on-hit ring affix. Elemental weakness on hit can be found as an implicit on corrupted gloves, but it's worse. Killing all the bandits in Act 2 is the only viable solution to the "Deal with the Bandits" quest. Soul of Solaris is the major god of our choice, as it improves survivability during boss fights. If you, however, are tanky enough, pick Lunaris to be faster and for protection against projectiles, which is great for a melee character. Soul of Ryslitha for flask charges is great, as some fights may take longer than your life flasks allow you for. If that's not a problem, pick literally any other god guided by your weak points. The passive skill tree is supposed to increase your maximum life, evasion, armor, spell suppression, and maybe even grant some elemental resistances if need be. For damage, allocate axe, attack, physical, fire, and 2 hand clusters. Melee damage is not very important. The most important keystones are Iron Grip, Point Blank, and Call to Arms. Resolute Technique is good too, as we have no interest in critical strikes. There are just not too many opportunities to invest in it. For masteries, get extra 50 life from Life Mastery, Stance or Rage Mastery from Axe Mastery, chance to suppress spell damage as lucky as Suppression Mastery, 100% increased damage with hits against ignited enemies as Fire Mastery, and for 2 hand masteries, chance to deal triple damage, and increased damage against rare and unique enemies. And that's it. A simple, enjoyable, and cheap build. We encourage liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Stay safe and see you soon.